Welcome to NeuroNoodle's Neurofeedback and Neuropsychology Podcast, featuring tech legend Jay Gunkelman. He's the man who has read well over 500,000 brain scans, and Dr. Marie Swingle, author of iMinds. Our goal is to provide information and promote options for better mental health. The NeuroNoodle Podcast is supported by listeners and businesses just like you. Jay Gunkelman, how we feeling?
I'll give you the old red eye.
Oh, how's it feeling, man?
It feels fine. If you've ever had a nick that bled in the sclera, you get blood, blood red. And a surgical, you're going to get blood red on the sclera. It's not something you feel. I mean, the surgical entry point ends up feeling like you've got something in your eye, but that kind of goes away over time. So mostly I don't notice that now, but the redness is, it's just, I'll give you the evil eye.
Arg.
Exactly.
But can you see better, or you feel better? Like what's the outcome? Would you do it again?
Pete, I'm sorry to say I can see you really clearly.
Objects may be closer than they appear.
Actually, I have, when I go outside, I have to put on dark glasses because it's so bright. The filter was not just a white fuzz, which a cataract will give you a white fuzz over everything. Mine had gotten to the point where it was so thick a white fuzz that it was actually yellowing. And so it gave me Hollywood vision. Nothing, there weren't wrinkles on anything. It had a little slight cyan cast to it, like an old movie. And now that I see clearly, I have freaking age spots on the back of my hand. I look in the mirror, I see these freaking bags under my eyes. I could, they don't warn you. There's no warning before the surgery. When you come back, be careful when you get near a mirror.
You need to adjust your mirror.
Like 20 feet away, So,
well, I'm glad you got it taken care of, Jay.
So I can see, when you get your cataracts nowadays, it's not just, they don't just toss in any old lens and then have to give you glasses to make it work. You can get the lens adjusted for distance or medium or close. And since I do work on a computer, basically anything I can touch, I wanted to be able to see real clear. And I can see clear as absolutely crisp within things that are close. But as I get to distance stuff, it all blurs out because I can see close. Now, that's how my eyes were inherently. I didn't need glasses to see the screen. I needed glasses for distance. So when I put on my dark glasses, which were corrective lens glasses, I could see at a distance. Now, I don't think it's exactly the correct, prescription, but I'm going to end up with a monocle with a photogray monocle, so that I have distance correction that I can use, but I can take it off. A monocle just dangles on a chain. So if I'm sitting at a computer, I don't need it at all. But if I'm going to go outside, I want to protect the eye, and a photograyed lens ends up being, dark when you're outside. So,
is there anything you wish you would have known before you did it?
The final bill. I still don't know the final bill. Yeah. So
you say, I'm coming in cash.
No, and they say, that the night before the surgery, you get a text message, and they say, tomorrow's your surgery. We would really advise you to settle up right now before you come tomorrow, so it doesn't take any time, that there's no issues with the credit card denial or something such as that. So
Right.
they wanted $3,090 to walk in the door. But in smaller print it says this does not cover your physicians or anesthesiology bills. And so my post-surgical follow-up at the doctor's office, examining just to make sure that there wasn't something right the day after the surgery, something that hadn't gone, badly wrong, some infection or complication. So at that office visit, Renita says, "Well, is there a bill?" And the doctor says, I'll be right back. And it went out for a little bit and came back and says, well, 2,000 for now. I think that should do it.
Unless we come up with something,
But,
$10 Tylenol.
but that doesn't cover the anesthesiologist. And I expect $1.50 from the anesthesiologist, actually. So, I,
Worth every
I,
penny.
I I'm in under 10, I'm fine, so yeah, I don't have insurance, so there's no insurance premium. So, coming out the door under 10 grand for a surgery that's a one-time fix is not a bad deal. So,
Yeah, for
um,
being self-insured, you came out on the
yeah,
positive end.
yeah. And I told them, bill whatever they needed to bill, and I wasn't going to quibble about it. And I'm not looking for some low price. I'm just looking, whatever your expenses are, I'll cover them.
Right.
So anyway, so under 10, which is where I had planned it, and significantly enough under 10, I'll have some money to give away to students. So
Right. Exactly.
so.
So last night's Q&A, Jay, if you want to take a second, check your email and see if there's anything there that stands out that, hey, you know what? That is an interesting thought or question.
Well, there was a stack of stuff here, SMR
Yeah.
training, and you know, first of all, what is SMR? SMR is a sleep. It's a stabilizing rhythm. It's a sleep spindle at night, and it's a stabilizing rhythm during the day. The sensory motor rhythm, as identified by Sturman. Now, he identified it from 11 to 19, depending upon your arousal level, group average at 13. But that was in normals, and they since have seen it at 10 in autistic kids, rare, but as slow as 10. And how do you know that it's as slow as 10? You get the kid to fall asleep and you see a vertex sharp wave of the spindle and you count the freaking sleep spindle. That is the SMR tuning for that person, custom tuning. So you can train it appropriately if you can target the right frequency band. And for somebody who's got a really high arousal level, maybe their background alpha is really fast, or they've got excess fast activity. You can see either cortical or subcortical over arousal in them. You can guess that the SMR may be a little faster, but 12 to 15 allows for a certain amount of flexibility within that range. And unless the 12 is bumping into the fast edge of your alpha or something, you probably can get by with that 12 to 15 as a general rule. There are times that it needs to be slowed slightly. Uh, again, you have to look for that. But it quite commonly will work just fine. Alpha theta training is suppressing high beta before alpha training can help out. But
Yeah.
actually, one of the interesting studies that was done of alpha theta training at the Royal College of Medicine in London, John Griselier is the professor there who did the study, and they were doing alpha theta training specifically to look at expressivity and creativity in musicians. And this is the equivalent of Juilliard. They have the Conservatoire of Music there. So these are all people who, it's not like they're learning how to play the damn instrument. They're already freaking good, or they wouldn't be there. So they did before and after recordings, and they did all sorts of blinded rater as to what was first or second recording, and actually found that Alpha-Theta Training increased the expressiveness and creative expressiveness of the performances. But they also did post cues after the Alpha-Theta Training. And they found that Alpha-Theta Training, which you're training hypoperfusion correlates. So you're literally training hypoperfusion, and beta is hyperperfusion. So when you train alpha-theta, beta goes down. Now, suppressing beta may help with the alpha-theta training, but alpha-theta training can help bring down beta as well. So there's an interrelated system there based on arousal level, and hypoperfusion. When you learn how to do it, you can turn off your hyperperfusion, which may not be something you wanted to have around in the first place. The beta may have been a problem, but the alpha theta training can end up helping bring it down. They're they're always giving cortisol a bad name. It keeps me alive. So
what about high beta and big people like me, Jay? What is that?
Well,
cravings, anxiety, fat storage.
It depends upon where the beta is. High beta, first of all, high frequency, high power, beta spindles.
Yes.
There's all sorts of things that high beta. Well, what's that? If you see spindling beta in an EEG, that's easily excitable cortex, and that, depending upon where it is, can be sensory sensitivity or hypersensitivity. If it's in a sensory area, it can be in the motor area and have easily triggered motor function. So kind of a jumpiness. If you want to not jump offside, you need to kind of tamp that down, a little SMR in there too. But the high beta is a cortical arousal level. Now, that doesn't necessarily correspond always to cravings. If the high beta is at the anterior cingulate, you may have anxiety, you may have OCD type, obsessive type cravings. They've actually shown that training slower cortical potential activity at the anterior cingulate ends up cutting down on cravings in people who have eating disorders. So it's not, the high beta, first of all, is again an undefined term, a bit too much, but where it is ends up making a big difference. And some of what they're talking about is if it's at the anterior cingulate, and it's not the only kind of failure at the anterior cingulate that can give you the same kind of behavior. So you can get OCD type stuff from slow content or alpha frequencies or beta frequencies. If the anterior cingulate's not working, these are the kinds of symptoms you see. So, which is why the DSM, the behavior may point towards the neural network that might be involved, but it doesn't tell you what you're going to find when you get there. There's different failure modes for the same neural networks.
You brought up empathy, and that was my next point. Empathy, OCD, and antisocial traits. OCD often coexists with rigidity and reduced empathy. ADHD, autism, and allergies are interlinked. Empathy is declining in society, narcissism rising. Interesting.
Are you tossing all that insult at me?
Yeah, I think I'll share it with myself. Is there
um,
anything to it?
well, first of all, I don't know that certain traits are rising in society. I'd have to see some data on that. I think these traits have been personality traits that go back decades or centuries. Uh, this is not unusual. They manifest a lot of different ways, but there's a lot of the foundational stuff that's or antique techniques. So uh, um, you have to suggest that there may be an increase in the incidence of autism, and as such, that can have a shift in the percentage of people that have difficulty with social perceptual stuff, which is going to be both empathy and potentially antisocial, because you can't judge the impact that you have on others very well. This empathy is the ability to feel with somebody, but if you can't feel anything about things outside of you can't judge your social context. So when you do something, you don't know what your impact is on others. So you don't have any empathy for them. You're not seeing your social milieu. And then OCD is an anterior cingulate, and that can be seen in a lot of different things, but it also is a trait that goes in along with the autism. So ADD ADHD is different percentages of incidence depending upon where you live. Um, there's about a 10% lower rate of ADD ADHD in the desert Southwest than there is in the Northeast due to solar intensity. The solar intensity essentially treats one kind of a sleep disorder that mimics ADD ADHD, delays circadian rhythm, bright lights in the morning and melatonin at night. You can reset the circadian rhythm, but that kind of a sleep disorder ends up giving you an inattentive look at school. There are other kinds of sleep disorders that can mimic ADD ADHD, but one of them is a significant one, and again is treated effectively with solar intensity. The CDC's map of solar intensity overlaid with the the photovoltaic map of solar intensity overlaid on the CDC's map of incidence of ADD ADHD, which was acquired in a prior administration when the CDC was still providing information. Uh, they've kind of ceased being of utility that they normally were in providing health information that's happening across states. Anyway, neurofeedback for gifted and billionaires.
Yeah, what's different with a billionaire mind? I think the successful people aren't their anterior cingulates stuck that they're making their companies better and they're letting everything else go to pot, namely their families.
There's that's quite the generalization, but the firm that screens for CEO candidate finalists was skewed for a bit of OCD, not pathological. I mean, they're not looking for some hand washer idiot.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they want somebody who's obsessively focused on the delivery of the ideas that they've got to deliver. And they've got to deliver it in a short period of time. A good CEO is there about 4 or 5 years. And if you can't deliver the ideas that you've got to the company in that short a period of time, you probably aren't a good CEO anyway. So, but they also look for a little bit of impulsivity. because in business, you're competing with other businesses, and you've got to be one of the first ones to actually pull the trigger on a deal. So you can't be so paralysis from analysis. You can't be so tied up thinking about things that you can't get something done. So that they actually look for some traits, some impulsivity, not pathological, and some obsessive compulsive traits, again, not pathological. And since it's a short run, again, they expect 4 or 5 years of good obsessive work. But then you get your golden parachute, and you can get your OCD and impulsivity treated, very nicely somewhere in a concierge treatment center somewhere.
Mhm.
So, but uh, it's entirely possible to uh, uh, get somebody who's uh, behaving at a high level who's not going to be able to stay there because again, you gotta ride the horse of OCD, not be ridden by it. So there are some people that are operating at a very high level that if they want to continue to, they need to learn how to control some of these systems. And for them, uh, peak performance and being able to maintain peak performance across time ends up being an important thing. You can't jack up the system and keep it jacked up long term or you burn it out. And I think there's a little bit of a discussion here about Parkinson's having some burnout of a motor system. There's some, I think that's a little bit of a simplistic view of the mechanism underlying Parkinsonism is you burn it out with over arousal, but they do observe beta excess in the motor system. But you can see beta and gamma excess in a thalamocortical dysrhythmia, and ultimately Parkinsonism is seen as a thalamocortical dysrhythmia that Rudolph Linus and then valid. It was theoretical with Rudolph Linus's paper talking about dysrhythmia, and everyone thought of it as an interesting theory. But when Dirk de Ritter used machine learning algorithms to find the dysrhythmia and localize it and give the diagnostic association with better than 90% accuracy between tinnitus and pain and movement disorders, and about 85% accurate with depression. So the location of the dysrhythmia is in a different location, but for Parkinsonism, you do end up with excess fast activity associated with the dysrhythmia.
Hey everyone, if you're enjoying the show and want to help us keep it going, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Your support helps improve the content and brings on great guests and grow the show. Join us on Patreon at patreon.com/NeuroNoodle. But hey, if supporting financially isn't in the cards right now, no worries. You can still help us out for free by liking, subscribing, and sharing this episode. It really makes a difference and helps more people find the show. If we've earned it, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. And then, Jay, religion came into play because we exhausted politics, so we had to go to religion. We were talking about Jewish people and what they're susceptible to, and shuckling came up where they're rocking when they're studying or they're praying, and then it turned into Catholics and worry beads when they're twirling the beads, and then it got it connected to, is this similar to what people with autism have when they're doing all these things? You got any thoughts?
Um, I think that this deserves a lot more attention than we can give it in a short summary like this. Especially when you start to dabble in religion.
Yeah.
It's religion and politics are Well, when I grew up, my dad was a business person, and he said two things you never talk about: religion and politics.
Yeah.
So and which meant you could talk about the freaking weather, or sports,
But if you're
but
memorizing the Torah, does that help you like learn?
actually, if you work mnemonic devices, as an example, you can learn how many digits can you learn in pi. And if you extend the number of digits that you can remember, you're actually working your memory banks in a way it ends up having positive side effect for other kinds of memory function. So, there are lots of associative memory tricks of remembering your old neighborhood and remembering things and assigning them to the next houses and whatnot. But there's memory tricks and rosary beads, and those kinds of things can be used uh, as a mnemonic as well. But again, I think all of this needs uh, uh, serious,
Right.
deep discussion, and religions that go back centuries are being talked about as one monolithic entity, and that's hardly the case. It'd be like suggesting that all Americans have the same politics. So, you know, even in the Catholic religion, you can find Catholic parishes that are very conservative, and others that are doing uh, weddings for trans folks and whatnot without any concern over that not being fully appropriate. So there's a range of beliefs even within established religions, and the older the religion, the more time it has had to have offshoots. Goodness knows the Protestant religions sprung up like uh, mushrooms in a field, all at once in some fashion. So, world religions and philosophy ends up being a tremendous uh, topic area, but it's not easily pointed at with respect to EEG content. There's some data that can be looked at, but it's pitifully inadequate at this point.
Okay, so when we punted it, we did the right thing last night. Okay, good. And then go just check it. Therapeutic integrity and cultural guilt. We were talking about guilt. Therapists and did it.
Worry and guilt and shame and there are social emotions. There are primal emotions that people realize as emotions. Oh, fear, anger. Those are primal emotions. You really feel those. But if you look at Alan Shore's work, and I recommend his original papers and his current work, is all fabulous work. But he talks about the face-to-face development through feedback, face-to-face, the development of the right frontal neural networks and the neurochemistry underlying those neural networks for establishing primary emotion. But then at the year and a half, 2 years, you start to end up having separation and abandonment, and shame and guilt end up being emotions that are learned, social emotions, and those are left temporal, not right frontal. So the localization ends up shifting around. It's still an emotion, but it's not a primal emotion. It's a learned social emotion, and again, different neural networks.
So guilt, shame is the same as guilt. You pick it up the same way.
It's one induces the other.
Want to do But are some people more susceptible to it, or what you're saying is whatever
Oh
environment
yeah, yeah,
you,
yeah. If you experienced abandonment, you're going to be subject to being sensitive to social emotion, abandonment-related social emotion. You know, uh, the ACEs score stuff about early life experiences
Mhm.
and later life outcomes. Um, th these are subtle influences here that we're talking about. This isn't like living in a neighborhood that has gunfire and having your one of your parents in prison, or seeing physical abuse at home, or being abused at home, or being bullied at school. I mean, there's the 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 difficult early life experiences can end up giving you later life very negative health consequence. And uh, extremely early life experiences shape your emotional expressiveness. What emotions do you have in your repertoire? You know, are they all primal, or are you one who's prone towards the social emotions of shame and guilt and worry in that respect? So, and you may also have frontal midline theta and have no worrying and no anxiety related features. So, a lot of different things can be seen.
So high beta won't help you lose weight, or we were just way off.
You know, I think that's the wrong thing. Again, high beta. What does it mean? It,
Well, go through each one it could be, which, power.
if if you have beta that's due to inflammation, you're probably not going to end up having it associated with you losing weight. You're probably going to be consuming things to stabilize um, and soothe. And an anterior cingulate full of beta can end up getting you obsessive compulsive eating. So, extreme weight gain, eating disorder related weight gain.
So
So,
does Ozempic
you know,
change that? The brain waves, like the beta?
um, I have not personally seen any good data on Ozempic and EEG.
Okay.
That I have seen them claim that it cuts down on craving, not just for food, but also for addiction.
Hmm.
So, but if they're having positive influences on that, it may not be for everyone. It may be for a particular phenotypic group, um, but they're targeting people that are inherently obese in the first place, or people that are overly concerned about being obese, one or the other. Uh, 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 but that again, the obsessive compulsive drive may not be beta; it may just be cingulate, and it could be beta, it could be theta, it could be alpha at that point.
And then remind me how this all ties back into anxiety and your amygdala and everything.
Well, to start with, you've got a resting state network that doesn't really go along with anxiety. Resting state is like a chill, relaxed
Yeah.
network. Your alpha is being generated. You've got it in the parietal and temporal areas, and a little bit up front. And you're relaxed. You haven't focused on anything. You're not working on anything. You're just
Chill.
as they say, self-referential. You might be kind of mind wandering, but you're not asleep. You're not off. You're resting but ready. And from that resting but ready state, if something catches your attention, that's the salience network. Well, the salience network has the anterior cingulate, but it also has both amygdalas and both insulae. And those networks can end up catching something that catches your attention. It might be something that has emotional content, which would be an amygdala issue. It may be an internal sensation, which could be picked up with the posterior aspect of the insula, which is interoception. It could be uh, lots of things, but if something has caught your attention, the salience network turns off the default mode network and turns on the central executive network, the frontal parietal, what is it, where is it, analytic network. And if you're sitting there full of resting state alpha and maybe some mu, and you kick in this salience network, it turns all that resting state stuff off, and it turns on your focus and engagement. And that engagement turns off the mu, and it turns off the alpha. Well, it doesn't turn off; it attenuates it at least. Some people, it blocks the alpha. That's an extreme amount of alpha attenuation with eye opening. There are some people that block alpha and have hypervigilance, so their eyes are open. They're locked in a salience and central executive, and they don't have any resting state alpha, and that's an over-aroused individual usually. Anyway, it sounds like you guys had some interesting discussions.
Well,
So,
last one that I think we're both experts on, Jay, is um, candor is kindness. We're in a society where people don't like to have difficult conversations, even if somebody's doing something that is making the other person uncomfortable. If you don't say anything, then you're acknowledging that it's okay, so nobody ever has a difficult conversation. I was just wondering if there was anything going on in the brain where I don't know if it's PTSD or whatever, but people are afraid to give candor, honest feedback, because we're in the feedback business. If you don't give honest feedback, especially in a therapy session, not that I'm a talk therapist, but we were talking about some of the best therapists are the ones that tell the truth or don't delay telling the truth. You got any thoughts on that?
well, I'm a tech.
I'm a
uh,
video editor. We were talking about
so,
it.
you know, I, uh, I don't have enough social grace to pull a punch. So, when I review an EEG, I call what I see, and I don't care whose it is.
Right.
When I reviewed the EEG of the head of that CEO candidate search company,
Yeah.
it was his EEG, but I basically told him I thought he wasn't the brightest bulb in the pack, and that he had a terrible memory and he was depressed and and uh, uh, and what's it, trying to win friends and influence enemies or something, or this is the way to get an account, yeah, you're stupid. You're depressed. You don't remember shit, so I told him an accurate view.
Yeah.
I didn't like make fun of the fact that I thought he was not the brightest bulb in the pack. But when I was finished with it, he said it was a very accurate assessment, and he has to have people taking notes, because if he focuses on taking notes, he won't look like he's engaged with the people in the meeting, and he's the CEO, so he's got to at least look like he's engaged, even though he's got other people figuring out what just happened, and so and he is a bit depressed, and uh, there were other people that had seen him that apparently had just blown smoke up his ass about what
Yeah.
he was like. That's not good practice. People know when they're being lied to, and
Yeah.
and and they know when you're saying, "Well, I'd like to tell you, but I can't." I mean, the what are you hiding? You've got to have a relationship with your therapist that's an honest and open relationship, and they need to be able to call out whatever they see. If it's the two of spades, it's the two of
Yeah.
spades. You don't call it a heart. You know, uh, um, you know. Uh,
Well, I wish Dr. Marie was around to see what she had to say, but it seems to me that if you were a therapist, it would make it's you don't want the sessions to end. You want to keep them going and going. So does the truth just get delayed, 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 or I don't know.
and I don't know that there are therapists out there that just want to keep the client because they want to keep the client.
Yeah, yeah,
If you get somebody to a point where they're functioning well, the therapists I know do a weaning, cutting down on the number of sessions from 2 or 3 a week to one a week, and then one every other week, and then you can come in another month and see if things are going well, and if things are still going well, we come back if something happens, but uh, they wean people,
yeah.
and in therapy, the the end game in therapy is not always done well. You don't want to end up having uh, the client have a feeling of abandonment, but you've got to end up cutting the dependence at some point as well. So, and that's a tough call. It's one of the reasons that people that are therapists have other therapists that they work with as supervision, and they have people that give them advice about how they're doing with stuff, and if they're having trouble with the end game with a client, there's somebody who's got more experience with it that can help them out with that sort of thing. So,
And then Jay, what's going on in October?
well, I'm getting older and older and older, and every October the solar lap slaps me again, and uh, this year, since I can't travel to meetings, I hold a 3-day EEG party here in town. We take over the yacht club and end up having great discussions about EEG topics and um, uh, international speakers and uh, interesting discussions. This year, we've got one person talking about how to do AI-based EEG to create neurofeedback recommendations, and another presentation warning of the difficulties and the possible problems with such an approach. So we do address things head on. We don't pull punches, and we go right direct at it. Um, anyway, from the 8th to the 11th, we've got the Suisun Summit. Suisun. Suisun means west wind, and the yacht club is holds up to 80 people, and after that, everything goes live stream. We already have a fairly large number of people internationally doing the live stream, which we found pretty good quality
Yeah,
actually from last year.
outstanding. Can't wait. All right, Jay. Well, what did we talk about today? We have a Q&A every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Central Time, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
A bunch of guys who think they know what they're talking about get together, and then the content is driven by people that show up and chat with us on YouTube. You can find the link right here. Jay Gunkelman, please take care of that eyeball.
I will. I missed it last night because I was in a meeting with the Department of Toxic Substance Control and BCDC about Selby, a slag site next to a metal refining spot that was abandoned many, many years ago. It's the largest toxic supply of heavy metals for the San Francisco Bay. And I've been working on this project since the 1990s. With the Department of Toxic Substance Control thought they had the draft EIR ready to go to final, and I brought up yeah. So they're going to have another meeting, it turns out. They didn't show the community's plan to the BCDC at all. Tried to boondoggle them into an agreement with them when they didn't understand the other alternative plans. So anyway, the BCDC felt blindsided appropriately. We're not really pleased with that. And I gave them hell. You hold a meeting. We've been working with you for over a decade, and you hold a meeting and you don't show our plan you don't like, but we do to the BCDC. And another, no, man. The people from BCDC winked off. Their cameras blinked out. They didn't want to be any part of this, I can become righteously indignant and be really, really pissed. Yes, and I turned on my camera, and I'm a bit red-eyed, and the light was just right. So they got this bloody-eyed, angry citizen.
Coming soon.
Anyway,
our environmental podcast, Jay.
Well, I was actually interviewed, and he did 2 podcasts out of it, one on EEG and one on environment.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
who did the podcast?
I'm trying to remember. I'm terrible with names.
Email me and I'll.
Yeah. Anyway, you got it.
Jay, take care of the eyeball. Say hi to Renita.
You got it. Bye-bye.
Hey, everyone. If you're enjoying the show and want to help us keep it going, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Your support helps improve the content and brings on great guests and grow the show. Join us on Patreon at patreon.com/NeuroNoodle. But hey, if supporting financially isn't in the cards right now, no worries. You can still help us out for free by liking, subscribing, and sharing this episode. It really makes a difference and helps more people find the show. If we've earned it, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. The NeuroNoodle Podcast is supported by listeners and businesses just like you.